November 12 meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Commission to order. The mission of the Cottage Grove Parks and Recreation Commission is to create and promote policies, programs, and places that enable active living for a more vibrant community. Roll call.
Taken.
And have we had an opportunity to review the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. Have we had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yep.
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any open forum this evening? No? All right, thank you. Presentations?
None tonight.
All right, then we can move on to our action items. We'll begin with Oakwood Park Disc Golf Course Plan and Funding Request.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Since this past spring, we've been working with a group of volunteers at the Oakwood Disc Golf Course to coordinate a master plan for course improvements. And that master plan is submitted in the report for your was submitted in the report for your review. And then also the disc golf course group has been looking to take advantage of the commission's matching funds program, the $2,500 per allocation program to for the purchase of signage, new baskets and things of that nature, basically working towards that master plan objective. So we do have one of the representatives from the volunteer group here, but I'll turn it back over to the chair. You guys can discuss the plan and the funding request. And I guess tonight we're looking for two action items. One, to approve the master plan as submitted, and then secondly, or provide feedback as you may wish, and then secondly, to review the funding request.
So I have a question about garbage. I don't know if any of the rest of you saw that Facebook post a while back about all of the garbage that's kind of consuming the course. Is there a plan to add more garbage cans to that course? I know some of the people who use it were saying that the garbage cans are like regularly full and there's not very many. So is that something that can be added into this plan to add more garbage cans?
I think I'll have our superintendent, Jim Foreman, address that question. I know he's been working towards that. Jim, do you want to?
Yeah, we've added some.
Good, Jim, can you go up? Can you go up?
Sorry, Jim.
Yes, Commissioners, we've added some additional garbage cans. We are working directly with the group down there to come up with better locations for garbage cans and working with them on different ways to access some of the areas so we can get our trucks in and out of there better with some trails and whatnot. So it's all a work in progress while we work with them and come up with a better plan to clean it up.
Thanks.
Do we have other comments or questions before our guest speaker?
I have a question about the erosion. Can you speak to are the volunteers established and how bad the erosion is and what is necessary to try and rehabilitate that part of it?
Sure. Just for the sake, my name is David Baumrucker, and I guess I'm the lead representative for this Oakwood project. Yeah, the erosion's a problem just because of wear and tear. When we had the original proposal, we kind of just presented to Zach and Jim back in the day. We were just kind of looking at the growth of the sport. And Minnesota, specifically Oakwood, was the second highest trafficked course in growth. We had a 690% increase over 2 years, which is pretty far out considering that that's talking about maybe a couple hundred people a month to maybe 150 people a week going into this park and doing that. So there's a lot more erosion. That being said, there's a lot of dedicated people that really want to address that, and some of the people we have working with us have backgrounds in architectural backgrounds and also landscaping backgrounds, and so we're trying to build a tier system. The city's been great by helping us. They already took care of one of the holes for us, but it's a really big project, and I think the core for us so far has been just like honoring the landscape, not trying to damage it. There are some things we have to do just because of some, like what Jim was talking about, making roadways and pathways. That's like, I want that to be an ongoing negotiation, like how we build that together, because a lot of players have a lot of insights, but the city also has a lot of need for utility, and those things have to kind of like connect with each other, if that makes sense. But to answer your question specifically on erosion, everything we've been doing to fix it up is not only to clean up the park, but to essentially do that. We want to add baskets to the park. We want to make the course more dynamic. The sport's really grown. And as a result of that, we want to make sure that we don't damage the park over the next 5, 10 years because we haven't addressed issues like some of the hills kind of washing out and some of the areas just having a lot of dead trees and needing to be kind of just cleaned up and kind of gone through.
Thank you.
Are we, is for the matching, are we approving for this year and next year when we get to that point? Or is it, because it's saying 2022 and 2023, so are we doing both tonight or just one?
Just one for 2022.
Okay.
I was a little confused in the paperwork. It seemed like we were saying, Edmund, we were saying a $2,500 grant. I think you were saying two $2,500 grants this year. So I'd like some clarification on that.
Sure, I can speak to that. I mean, part of me just being in charge of the community side of things, I always want to ask for more and have someone else tell me no. So that's on me. There is one specific item, though, that I think is the core focus, and that would be just helping with the signs. So the other things are wish list items. This thing is more of like a structural necessity item. We've been able to talk with a local like map maker and cartographer that works specifically with disc golf courses. He works in like 7 different states. He's got his whole portfolio up on his website, but he's been walking the course with us, taking GPS data, trying to really make this accurate, trying to do these things and build signs that are very, very legible for people. And also making on the signs designate like the walking paths and where different areas are. There's a new pavilion and there's new different things. There's also some interesting entry points to the park from different communities as well. And so just being able to kind of guide people that are coming in from different access points, yeah. So.
David, could you share with us how you count the number of visitors or users on the park? That you commented on, like the number of rounds played, and I was just curious how you count that.
Sure. So there's a company out there called UDisc, and UDisc does all the free, almost like free scorecarding, almost runs all the statistics for you. So if you want to count how well you do just much in golf, like your birdies, your eagles, your pars, it's going to keep all this if you create an account and make a scorecard, right? So if you make a profile on every single round you play, it's going to track all of that metadata for you. The data we're giving you is only from people who use that app. Now, that app is occupying probably about 65% of the people who play disc golf, but that's still leaving out a large population. I also run a local league, and I would say probably 15-20% of the 40 people we have come out every Friday don't have any social media, don't use UDisc, and so they don't keep track of it, but they live in the community and they're coming out twice a week or something like that. So we just took that metadata and then kind of applied it, going, yeah, that fits what we see with our league, is that there's a lot of growth and there's a lot of people that the sport's really grown. Just because I've also been running this league for the last 3 years, since 2019, and when you start having 15 people every Friday to up to 55 people every Friday, you can really notice that difference over 2 years, and so it's just something we notice, and the numbers represent it too.
I've just got a quick question. So you mentioned it was, what, 690% increase, right?
Yeah.
Is that just from the UDisc
Just
users,
UDisc.
or was that like an estimate based off of who's using the app and then?
That's strictly using UDisc data. So the largest in the state was Cottage and over the bridge, and then we were second for overall growth. But again, that's just counting people who use that service. So it doesn't count anybody who doesn't use that service.
So it's really like 800% roughly.
I can't speak to what it really is, but I just know that it's a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Did you have more information you wanted to share, just background about
Sure.
the request?
I think in general, when we were talking about moving forward with the project, we were talking about paths and roads. The garbage is a massive issue out at this park. And so luckily, I mean, of the probably 50, 60 people I know regularly that are playing weekly leagues and playing just come to the league I run, we're pretty motivated on picking up the garbage cans, and we want to just create a system. Like, well, initially what our plan was is try to develop a simple road. so that when service vehicles or anything, we make it very convenient for the city to be able to go in there. I don't oppose to having it complicated, having to drive around, do these things. So one of the ideas was just to create a simple road loop inside the system that allows a truck to come in there, grab garbage cans, as well as just reestablish the walking paths that are coming from the different neighborhoods. Some of them are overgrown, but some of them could really be revitalized, and I think that'd be really, really healthy, just to allow people also that want to use the park to not be in the danger of getting hit by discs when they're walking down fairways.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. I do live right next to the park, so I see how often it gets used, and I'm up there probably once or twice a month. And I do completely agree with what you're saying and how a lot of the walking paths are really overgrown, undefined. A lot of times, like I feel like I'm gonna get hit in the head with a disc just because there's not really a lot of mapping, and it's just kind of confusing. But yeah, I mean, I see how much it gets used. I know what you're saying, and I agree with what you're going for.
Thank you.
This seems to me like a real nice community effort, something we as a city want to do, and volunteers are leading, and I think that's a good sign and something we should get behind.
Do we have any further questions about the master plan specifically?
Chair, Councilman Thede has a
Just something
comment.
like, real quick, I thought instead of waiting for when it gets to council. So is the, like the matching funds? I mean, we've got capabilities. One thing I was thinking as we were looking through this is we make signs all around the city. So I don't know, some of these signs out on the course, and using reflective material, things like that. Would we be able to make those signs, number one? And number two, would that count toward the $2,500 matching?
I can probably comment to that. The signs they're making are pretty detailed. We don't have the capabilities to make what they're very nice signs. And the person that's actually, they're in that business of disc golf, so they're pretty detailed. It'd be similar to what we would make for the golf course. So we don't quite have those capabilities, but we've talked about some of the things like watch for flying discs or, trail ahead, things like that we could certainly help out with.
Okay.
But for their requested donation, they have over $2,500 worth of signage that they're looking for support with.
Okay.
For this. So, Chair, with the couple of requests, just we've got some feedback on the plan, just looking for if there's consensus for approving that plan. The plan is always going to be malleable, right? So just because you approve the plan today, that's always a work in progress, like any master plan. And then considering the $2,500 matching funds request.
Can I get a motion to approve their master plan?
Motion to approve the master plan.
Thank you.
I can second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion to approve the master plan for the Oakwood Park Disc Golf Course has been approved. Next, the funding request. We will be considering one $2,500 request for this calendar year. Before we move forward with that, Zach, can you confirm, have we approved any funding requests from that account this year?
Ooh, I should have had that information with me. There was one earlier in the year, and I can't remember what the matching fund was for. We've approved one, I just can't remember specifically what it's for. This would be the second, then you have another one on your agenda for tonight, and then there's,
Dog park?
I'm thinking it was, but, and then there's whatever's left for the remainder of the year, so. If we get new requests between now and December 31st, so.
So we typically have four,
For $2,500,
and one has already been used.
yes.
Okay.
I'll motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you for your work on this project. We appreciate learning more about the activities going on at that park and all of the work that your volunteers have contributed to that.
Thank you. The last thing I would say is that just on the record, so you guys have to understand what's going on in the community, September 17th, there's a guy named Tim Grumwell that opened a store right next to Jimmy John's, kind of like his own pro shop. He's hosting a tournament out there. There'll probably be about 250 people out there from the community that are playing in that. I was working with a guy named Chris Meyer that also is a long time, probably 20 years in the sport, but he redirected the state championship to be at Oakwood this year on October 8th. And so one of our incentives and one of our motivations this whole time has been trying to just get things, kind of get the stars to align, just so we can, if we're going to be highlighted, last time I was at Oakwood Park was 1997, so it's been a minute since they come back around to this part of the state. And I just thought it was a great opportunity to get new baskets in there, do some landscaping, make it look really, really presentable, and kind of highlight the park. So.
Thank you. Next, we have the Cottage Grove Athletic Association soccer funding request.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. We have a second request for the matching fund program from our Park Improvement Fund, and that is from our Cottage Grove Athletic Association, who is in need of additional soccer goals. We do have a guest here that's willing to, from Cottage Grove Athletic Association, who is willing to answer any questions you might have. Their request, their letter of request is included in the packet that describes what they're looking for. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair, to discuss the matter, and then we're looking for a recommendation to approve or deny the funding request.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the commission about this funding request?
Seems pretty straightforward to me. I'd like us to approve it.
That would be great.
If you would, please introduce yourself and let us know kind of what you're looking for tonight.
Sure. My name's Reagan Faust. I'm the Director of Fields and Facilities for the Cottage Grove United Soccer Club. I just wanted to share that our club has been doing phenomenal and growing by leaps and bounds. After COVID, we were able to add a whole season for our rec program and now have over 1,000 rec kids every year participating. So it's just been really, really great to be able to have more and more kids enter our program and share soccer with more and more kids in our community. With that, we do have some standards, just the physical goal parts, get a lot of use, and they do get damaged. And we do host, in addition, some tournaments, and we need additional standards for some of the tournaments we host and for regular season play to support all the kids we coach and have in the program. So that's my ask. Is in the past, the commission has generously matched a donation and bought a set of standards for us, and then Cottage Grove United buys a second set of standards. So we're asking for that again.
My only question is, are these to replace or are these to, in addition?
So these would be in addition, because we do have a new soccer field now at Hamlet Park that we would want to have extra standards out there to use on that field during the season. Okay. In addition, for tournaments, the more standards we can have for the tournaments, the more games that can be played at once. And our limit right now is 9 fields, and this would bring us up to 11, which would be great.
I just want to say congratulations on your growth of your program.
It's been really fun.
I also appreciate your encouragement of participants in your program to help with park cleanup days. We have a lot of use, especially at Kingston Park, and when you bring the community together to help take care of it too, it's just really wonderful to see.
It's been fun.
Can I get a motion regarding the funding request?
Motion to approve the request?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a park naming request.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. The park naming request, the first park naming request before you tonight is from the Denzer family. The application is in your packet. This will be your third review of this, which means that the commission can take action and make a recommendation to council to approve, deny, or you can table it and request more information. So those are kind of the three options tonight. At the last meeting, the commission had asked for some additional information, history of the land use. There really wasn't much on that. I tried to give you what I could. It's kind of in that Mississippi River terraces and floodplain, but essentially it's been a farm field as far back as we know. And natural resources inventory, same thing, mostly agricultural, but I did try to share some of the pre-settlement vegetation that might have existed in that area based on some of the adjacent properties. And then a list of the Cottage Grove parks named after individuals and what their influence might have been, or what their influence was. So we had Belden Park, Hazen P. Moore Park, Joseph Labath Settlers Island, Nina's Park, Peter Thompson Park, and then Wag Farms Dog Park are the ones that have had our parks named after individuals. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair, and we can discuss the topic of the Denzer Park naming request.
We had the opportunity to drive by this property during our summer parks tour. Could you just refresh my memory? Was this the one we were considering for a vegetable theme?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I should say, I don't know that any specific location has been determined, but that's the one we've been discussing, correct? The old Zivic property. Can everybody shut their mics off real quick, 1 second? Okay, turn it. Susie, turn yours back on. It's you. Maybe slide, can you slide over to the microphone next to Adam there? Sorry about that. Does that one work better?
I think so.
All right.
Okay.
I can't remember where I was.
The location of the park.
Yes, so this is right off, kind of at the corner, the intersection of 100th and Hadley Avenue is there's a park near there, a neighborhood park near there in the future that's currently the proposal. That's a future park that would happen with future housing development.
So when, are you having trouble finding it?
No, I know. It's like those moments of silence where we.
So as I was reviewing, it seems like the application fits the kind of requirements that we look for, meeting the years of service and contributions to the city. The part where I was still having some questions was some of the specifics of the name. We have talked about the name of Denzer Park, also of Jack and Marley's Denzer Park. I was wondering if anybody had thoughts on the specific number of names included in the park naming.
Speaking to that, I just with consistency of the other park names, it seems like most other park names that are named after people with names is a last name or one full name. So it would be a divergence. I don't know if I'm partial to it. It would just be more consistent with what we already have established for naming parks to leave it Denzer Park. I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, I think it's helpful, but the application specifically has the first names and last names, so I didn't know if we needed to weigh that out.
Is that something that needs to be decided tonight?
No, the commission does not have to make a decision tonight. You could table it.
No, I mean, like, does the name have to be like, is tonight like the night to decide the name, or are we just motioning to approve the naming, like, to be able to name the park? Do you see what I'm asking? Like,
It's a good question. We've never taken that process before, but I suppose you could make a motion to, you'd probably want to table it and then just have a recommendation to come back the next meeting with a name that you're thinking of, or we could make a list of names, kind of like we did with Still Ponds Park. We formatted a list of names, then the commission worked with the applicant to figure out which name was best.
is there a representative here for this tonight?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering like what, like if like their like heart is set on like the name that they submitted, or if they're willing to.
Yeah, I think back to the Still Ponds Park where, you know, there was a name, they wanted the name to be associated with that park, but they weren't set on the name, so I guess we'd have to talk to them. But I think if we went back and said, you know, if the commission feels that they're overall approving some sort of a recognition of that name, just figuring out the right name, we could probably work with them or have them here at the next meeting to discuss.
I think personally, I think we should approve the naming of the park and possibly come up with a list of names and then have a representative here and work with them, like what you said. I think that would work best because I feel like right now we just have the one name and not a whole lot of options.
Right.
And I feel as if making a decision without a representative here too seems kind of odd. At least in my opinion, I think we should have them here, make sure they're all right with it as well, and kind of go from there. But that's just my opinion.
I agree. In that case, should we table the motion until we can have a representative here?
You could certainly make that motion.
I'll make the motion to table this park naming until we can have a representative present.
Second.
Okay. Do we have to vote on a table?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are tabling the discussion of the park naming until we can have a representative join us. Next, we have a,
Chairman, before the next item, if I could.
Yeah.
Before the next item, if I could. I actually need to recuse myself from this vote and from this discussion. I'm also going to excuse myself from here and go sit with my family, if that's all right.
thank you. So our next item is a park naming request brought forward by the Olson family.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. We have a second naming request on the agenda tonight for the Olson family, who made significant contributions to the community. The application is submitted for your review. The commission may remember that there was a similar application back, I believe it was March or May. But that was actually, I think it was actually February. But that was pulled that night. That application was pulled that night by the person that made the application. So this is actually the first review of the application from the commission. So no action is needed tonight, other than to discuss the merits. You could certainly open up the conversation to people that might wish to speak on the topic, and then give staff direction on whether you'd like to see, what kind of information you'd like to see to continue to further discuss the naming request.
So the only thing I would suggest is the same thing we just discussed with the last one, is the name. If we're gonna do one with two first names, then then why wouldn't we do the other one? But since the family's here, maybe that's something we can discuss and ask questions about tonight, about other possible renames that they would be okay with.
My primary question has to do with the location of this park. In the application, it describes a new park next to the Central Fire Station. And there is a park by Central Fire Station, but it's an established park that has a well-known name already. And so I have some concerns with renaming an established area, and I'm not sure if that is something that has been done in our community before. And I'm curious if there would be opportunities to consider additional locations or different features of parks. When we received the first request, it was for renaming Hamlet Park. And at that time, we discussed possibly having like an Olson Trail, or because Hamlet Park was near to the family's home. But we also have opportunities like that brand-new building that's being built at Glacial Valley Park that is at this point unnamed. We're getting ready to redesign the main pavilion kind of park shelter area at Kingston Park. There's several community parks that are in the East Ravine Master Plan that don't currently have names. So I'm curious if we could explore naming an area that is yet unnamed. If there aren't any immediate questions or concerns, I would invite a member of the requesting party to come and speak with us.
Hello, I'm Ted Olson. This is on, I take it. I'm here representing Conway and Katie Olson, our parents. My brother Dave is one of your commissioners. My sister Peg is here, her husband Steve, and our two friends, Jack Levold and Joe Fogarty. I was just, with your permission, going to share a couple stories about their involvement early in the city's life. And by early, I mean the 60s and 70s, at a time when it's unlikely many people really knew what they were up to and how what they did had a big impact on where we are now. So with your permission and with the promise of brevity, I'll go ahead.
Yes, please.
So we were moved here in 1961, some of us carried, and over their place on Hamlet, which was then called Ash. Barely a year later, there was an effort by the predecessor to the Met Council, to incorporate the township of Cottage Grove and the township of Woodbury into a single village that would have been named Washington. And with just a few months of time as a citizen of Cottage Grove, our dad decided that that wasn't a very good idea, along with one of his friends, Mr. Levold over here. And I think it's worth sharing the uniqueness of how it is that they activated the community to get involved in an alternative idea. They secured themselves a van, they strapped a loudspeaker on top of it, and if you can imagine, they went through street by street into these two small communities, talking into a microphone and explaining to people why it would be to their advantage to remain Woodbury and remain Cottage Grove rather than to be combined. And they activated the community sufficiently to get a special election where that idea was defeated, and that happened in 1962. Bearing in mind, again, they moved here in 1961. That's some pretty early civic activation. There were some headwinds then to Cottage Grove becoming a village because the Met Council is the one who approves that sort of thing, and they weren't all that happy that someone had taken it upon themselves to defeat that idea. So Conway went to the effort of figuring out how else you can get a village named, if not through the Met Council, and he discovered you can do that by going to the House. So he goes to the legislature, again, with the three of us, everyone under 10, and argues by himself in front of the House for the incorporation of the Cottage Grove into a village, which is passed, and then it goes to the citizenry who in 1965 passed that. So in many ways, we can recognize that we're here today as the village of the city of Cottage Grove because of the activities that took place in the first half of the 1960s. At the same time, the barely existent Cottage Grove Athletic Association put out a call. They needed T-ball coaches. Dad would have a tough time telling you the difference between a backstop and a double play, and yet he said, sure, I'll be a coach. He recruited himself someone who didn't know how to teach us to field and bat and that sort of thing. And while that guy was teaching us those fundamentals, he was just making sure the kids knew how it was to be an important part of a member of a team. And I bring this up simply to point out to you that at the same time that he's operating at the halls of the House in St. Paul, he's down in the dirt at what was then, I don't even know what Hamlet Park was called back then, working with little kids to make sure they felt good about themselves and knew how to win with grace and lose with dignity. He was operating at both levels. I'll share an additional story that once he was on the village council, prior to becoming a city, he conceived of an idea on how the city should fund itself. There's a little paragraph in that background about it. But his idea was that the city should self-insure. So the premiums don't leave the entity and go into the insurance marketplace, they stay right here. And you obviously pay your own claims, and as that corpus develops into a significant enough body of funding, you borrow from yourselves for the city's development. So the first city hall, the Public Works out on 61, and I believe the first two fire halls were self-funded. You don't go outside the city to borrow from the banks and pay them interest. You borrow from yourself and you keep your interest payments inside in the same way that your insurance premiums maintained themselves in time inside. The point being that the city was able to develop more quickly and keep its asset ratings where they needed to be. So when they did need to borrow, they could, but usually they didn't. And so a great deal of the development of the town happened as a result of that idea. Mom wasn't quiet and just raising us at the time. She was making sure that she led an effort to have hearing and vision screening done preschool. She was a leader in the Mrs. J.C.'s, and amazingly, she was a voting judge for over 30 years, literally until she couldn't do it anymore. So speaking of senior citizens then, I'll just close by saying, as he became a senior citizen, then our dad volunteered every year to make sure that other seniors got their taxes done properly, volunteered until he couldn't to make sure, and taught a class to senior citizens on how to, on safe driving after 55, and along with Jack and Joe and sometimes us, would walk a 2-mile stretch of rural city road to clean up the trash and the litter, and God bless them, sometimes the roadkill. So you don't adopt a road better than he did. So I'll close simply by saying that if it weren't for those activities in the early 60s, there might not have been a Cottage Grove for us to argue about or discuss naming conventions on parks with. I mean, they were really instrumental. And speaking for the family and their friends, I think it'd be a grand thing if you could name one of the parks for our parents. And to the question, he wouldn't want it named after himself. He would want both their names on it, I believe.
Or just one. Or just Olson.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Did you want me to stay here for questions, or?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing more of your family's history and the incredible contributions they made with their time and energy and with their finances to help support the growth of our city. We really appreciate that, and we'd like to find a way to honor or recognize those contributions that fits with our community today.
They love this place. She still lives here. Long life citizens. Thanks.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, I love history. Butternut Field, that was the name of the field, Butternut Field. Hamlet Park was Butternut Field, and I think it was Hollywood Avenue go through there? Or what was the name? There was a main road.
It was Ash, then Butternut.
I know they were named after trees, but I thought I remember hearing there was Hollywood Avenue, but that might be wrong. But yeah, Butternut Field.
So then I guess to piggyback off Susie's question, are you open to other parks, other like amenities at parks, or are you specifically looking for that area next to the fire station?
Myron Bailey, Mayor here in Cottage Grove. Thank you, by the way, for listening to these guys. It's funny because I've known them forever down the street because I grew up on Hamlet. And obviously Denzer's lived a couple blocks up from us, and that's the one that you talked about before. I guess maybe I'll speak to maybe what Zach is alluding to with regards to that park. Obviously, it's totally up to them, if they want to do something specific on a different park. The reason we thought about the fire station or the area next to the fire station was more related to the fact of their process of the things that they used to do through donations and such, to frankly get the first ambulance service going in Cottage Grove. The amount of money that they've donated to the fire department is instrumental, let alone parks in general, which I know for a fact they've done. And one of the things that we think we're going to be able to do, and that's why I'm looking at Zach a little bit here too, you may be aware that we're going to be taking a portion of that park that's back there right now for the future water treatment facility that is being built with 3M settlement money. Because of that, there is going to be an opportunity for us to ask them for funds in order to replace that park space. So in other words, there's going to be some additional funds that will be given or should be given to the city in order to make that happen. One of the discussions that we've talked about, and there has been some schematic designs of a play park next to the fire station with a theme of the fire department and public safety. And my comment with their background of what donations and such that they gave to the community around public safety and the fire department was that would be the right, personally speaking, I thought that would be amazing. If they want to do something else, I'm 100% in support of it. But I just thought with their connections to the police and fire departments, the early stages in Cottage Grove, that it made total sense that if that ends up coming to fruition, which we believe we will, and we'll be working through that with staff and the settlement money, the fact is that would be where I think then, yes, you've got the main park, which is going to be Pine Tree Pond or Pine Tree Valley Park, but you could have an actual park right off of 80th Street next to a fire station with the ambulance service that would be named after Katie and Conway Olson. In my personal opinion, because I've known both of them and they were both intimately involved in the process of all the different things I said, including the fire and police, I would encourage it to be Katie and Conway Olson. That would just be from my personal opinion based on knowing all the work that they've done over the years. It would be best to show both of them. Thank you. Unless you have any other questions.
No, but that information is probably helpful to know before we made a decision.
That's why,
so.
yeah, I know that's why it's been a little vague out there because there's designs of that park and the thought process of what we're gonna do with that park up there. And I just think it would be best if that ends up coming to fruition. And if it doesn't, and hopefully in the next very near future, we'll have some idea on that. If it looks like that's gonna be a ways off, then a decision could be made if they wanted to do a different park within the community. Okay, thank you.
So I guess, once again, you can continue to discuss it. You can request any information from me or additional information from the folks in the audience. Otherwise, there's no formal action recommended here unless you want to deny the request. If you want to continue the request, then we just carry it to the next meeting and I'll bring back whatever information you want to make to start thinking about a decision.
Did you have more to add?
Yeah, just for the sake of clarity, my siblings could correct me, it's been known to happen. I don't think mom and dad would argue where. I think they'd be thrilled to have them, something in their name. We'd be thrilled to have a little explanation of how they were involved in the community. So as long as both their names are on it, I don't think you'll get an argument from us to where. The whole community mattered to them, so where it's placed here, I don't think it matters that much.
Thank you, that's helpful.
It was many years ago that I was at my mother and father-in-law's house for Thanksgiving. I'm Peg Olson. And we got a phone call, and my mom was on the way to the hospital, and it was bad. And Steve drove, I made him go through red lights because I didn't think I would be able to say goodbye. And she survived because of the Cottage Grove police. And because they were there really quickly, they were right on Hamlet when the call came in. And she was gone, and they brought her back. And in just a few weeks, she'll be 91. I just have to say that Cottage Grove they loved it like we did growing up here. And they're special people, and Cottage Grove is special.
Thank you, Peg.
So I have a question. If we go forward with both the first names for this park, can we go back to the park that we just tabled then? Since that's half the reason why we tabled it?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it just seems fair, right? Like, if we're gonna do one with two names tonight, then why would we not do the other? Like,
You could rescind the motion. Motion to,
Well, but we
I
don't-
would, sorry, go ahead.
I don't think we'd want to rescind it though, because we tabled it so we could have more conversation with the family to have a better understanding of their preference. So we weren't saying, no, we're not going to use the two names. We're going to continue discussing.
Right, but we tabled it because we wanted them to be here to discuss the names when they put on their application what they wanted it to be called. So if we approve, like if we motion to go forward with what they asked for, which is both names, then there would be no reason to discuss it again.
Because we've had the.
Because we've
discussed
already
that topic
discussed
at least
it like 3
meetings.
times, so.
But if I may, Chair, you're not approving this request, the Olson request right now either.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, we've already discussed the Denzer Park. So I guess I'm questioning why we would table it to, again, when they've already formally requested what they want the park to be called. And part of the reason we tabled it was to have them here to ask them for additional information on what they want the park to be called.
I don't know the Robert's rules for that, but are we open to discussing, making a recommendation on that name, or do we want to leave the table?
I just think if we're going to do one with both names, then we need to do the other. That's my opinion. So wherever that takes us.
I think it would be great to have the representatives of the family here when we make a motion regarding the naming of a park after their family.
Have they been to any of the meetings about this park, about their park? I
They
mean,
were at the
but
first one.
the first one, that's it.
Yep.
But the last one was on a bus, so.
Yeah.
So you're looking for a motion to rescind the last motion?
I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm just saying, like, if we're going to do one with both names, then we need to do both with.
Well, since we can't take formal action on the Olson Park naming tonight anyway, because that's the first one, technically haven't decided to name it with 2 names yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just making my opinion known.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got it.
Okay. Noted.
For the Olson Families Park naming request, I think we would like to move forward with consideration, but it would be helpful to know if part of Pine Tree Valley is being taken away to build another park. Like, I would like a lot more detail on that specific plan. Is that something that could be available for our next meeting, or is that too early in the process?
Chair, members of the commission, yeah, we could probably sketch something up of what that might look like if we carved out a playground area. I'm guessing it's a playground and a picnic shelter type thing, a very small. So it'd be like almost a mini park within the larger park, I'm guessing. But I could sketch up a couple ideas just to kind of frame out what it might look like.
And could it include an ambulance or
the
other, like,
playground
first
theme?
responder themes?
That's what we had discussed. If there's going to be a playground there, it'd be kind of that hero theme.
Would a mini park be sufficient for you? Okay.
I do want to say too, as a second option as well, if we approve the naming request and just hold on to it until we have other plans for a new park coming out that might be a bit bigger, maybe more land, if that's what you're looking for as well, we could just kind of we can approve the name and just kind of table it for now. Yeah, we can discuss with you guys as well on possible future plans.
Councilman Thede?
I just want to say as part of council and what we'd look for maybe as an official response from Parks and Recs Commission is that in general, an official statement that you do approve of the, naming a park, Katie and Conway Olson Park. And then as we move along and we define some of the parks more, we'll already have your recommendation that you are good with that naming. And then it can be, discussed further on in the park and what the park's going to look like, how it's going to be structured, how the naming is going to be applied, things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to answer the question put to us, and again, you guys need to weigh in if you're not in agreement with me. I don't know the plans well enough to really have an opinion. If that's enough or not enough, I in fact, I'm not even sure I'd want to argue. I mean, I might argue that that a picnic shelter is maybe nothing is better than that, than something that modest. I just ask you to consider what you feel their influence is and was, and do a naming that feels commensurate with that. And I don't know that I would, I can't really answer a question, is that enough? Is a part of a park enough? I think that's, I mean, there are parents, you know what, I want Hamlet, I want the whole thing. That's what I want, if you want to know what I want, but I think that's off the table. So I would just say, that's your guys' choice, and, make it commensurate with what they meant to this community.
What exactly are we motioning?
So we need a motion that we want to continue considering naming a park or park entity after the Olson family in response to their application.
I motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Olson family.
Zach, this will be at the next meeting then, I assume, right?
Correct.
I'm just thinking about the
So-
new community park in East Ravine.
Like, there's so many options.
Okay, next we have the Public Landscapes Initiative Program.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. The Public Landscapes Initiative Program was developed back in 2006. It was an outgrowth of our tree mitigation program, which means that as development comes into town, as they remove trees and natural resources, they have to reinvest back into the community and replant. So that's where the funding for this program comes from. And then we try to make sure we line up public improvement projects to make sure those plantings occur and are putting those natural resource investments back into the community. Typically, in a given year, we'll have a public right-of-way or public facility type of planting, and then also a park planting. But we also do use it for matching funds for like prairie restoration, wetland restoration, and things of that nature too. So in the plan, you'll see the priorities for each budget year, and just looking for a review of that, answer any questions you might have, and then looking for approval.
I have a question. When we have unplanned improvements that are needed, whether it's due to misuse or unexpected weather, like, where does that money come from? Does that come from public landscapes or capital improvements, or is there something else we use to support those other requests or needs?
Can you give me an example? Are you talking like if a tornado?
Yeah, if a tornado comes and messes up something and
Yeah.
we need to replace it, how do we pay for that?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on what the damage is. I mean, anything from insurance to this program, but this program can be used to facilitate, any tree recovery or things like that. We can use this program for that. We're not locked into exactly what's in this year. And then there's times where we move the project year by year. If we get a matching grant and we can escalate a project, we'll push something else back. Or maybe we do 2 projects in 1 year and none the next. So it's a pretty malleable document. And there's a good list of all the accomplishments through at the end of the document too, if you can get a chance of, that's a list of kind of all the things we've applied that money towards.
Chair Brown, thanks for putting this together. I thought it was really, really informative. I have a question. It's really a personal question, but Corridor Project C, that 90th Street realignment with County Road 19, I'm not quite sure I understand what that means. Is that, were we going to put a roundabout there, or? Because it is aligned with Ravine, I think.
So,
It's Corridor C, or number C?
plantings would be along Trailway to emulate the Ravine Parkway aesthetic with timed after development of the area, realignment of 90th Street to intersect. Yeah, so that'd be more, it sounds like just inner plantings if available, which there isn't a lot of availability of public right away there right now because it's pretty tight with the Trailway, but anything that goes up that hill and over to 19, if there's any redevelopment there, we can use those funds to fill in the public right away. I know there's some potential development to the north of 90th Street there. You know, this would be an opportunity where we could use some of
But
those
what's
funds.
that realignment of 90th Street mean?
That could be some old language. I'll have to check with our city engineer
okay,
on that.
okay,
So
okay.
I know
Thank you.
that's been in this, that particular item's been in this plan for several years, and it's just been regurgitated.
okay,
So
okay,
maybe I
all
need
right.
to revisit with him on that.
I shouldn't read so carefully.
Yeah, I guess so.
Thank you.
Can we get a motion to comment on the Public Landscapes Initiative program?
I'll move to adopt the Public Landscapes Initiative as recommended and place on file.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the 2023 to 2027 Capital Improvements Plan.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Our capital improvements plan is a 5-year financing document for any projects, any capital expenditures greater than $15,000 with a life expectancy of 5 years or more. Very important document. Typically, we use the funds from a few different areas. There's the Park Improvement Fund, and I've detailed all these out, but Park Improvement Fund, our Park Trust Fund, Public Landscapes Initiative, which we just discussed, and then we try to allocate out all the different needs of the community and for recreational purposes, and then project out over 5 years and make sure they fit with the budgets in each of those funds. So I've submitted that for your review. Council will be reviewing this shortly as well, I think in early October. So any feedback from you can be delivered to the council before they give the final review and review of that document.
I think Cottage Grove does a fantastic job in regards to all of these funds, but I know we're experiencing pretty significant growth last year and this year. Do you feel like this is sufficient enough to keep up with increased demands on parks and natural ways? I just feel like there's going to be more coming at you over the next few years in regards to funding to keep all of this as beautiful as it has been. Can you speak to that?
Yes,
Vague
Commissioner.
statement at all?
Yeah, Commissioner Williams, it's a fair comment. It's something we worry about all the time, is trying to keep up with growth. The good news with growth is your tax base grows, you know, future development brings in money as well. One of I would say our primary concern right now is keeping up with our Park Trust Fund with development, you know, what we charge per unit. The commission will be reviewing something on that here probably this fall. Right now, we charge $3,400 per unit for a standard single-family home, and the cost of building parks have gone through the roof. And I'm sure you commissioners have seen the parks we build. I wouldn't say they're bigger and better, but there's irrigation, and playground equipment costs more, shelters cost more, ball fields cost more, everything costs more, and we can't build it for the same budget we had 10 years ago. So the commission will probably be reviewing something along the lines of increasing the Park Trust Fund, or the park dedication fee to home builders and apartment builders, and that's even for commercial districts, right? So if you know, when Walmart comes to town, they have to pay a fee as well on the property. So it's a challenge, but I think we're doing okay right now. But it's certainly something that doesn't keep me up at night yet, but keeps me on my toes. And we've been very blessed to have things like the Park Improvement Fund. You know, that's a source of funding that's been very helpful in our capital improvements plan to allow us. So I'm not fighting against our police department for money or our public works department for money. That's a dedicated funding source that the city committed to back in 2014. That said, we want to make sure that our oldest park and our newest parks are treated the same. So we're going to give a dedicated funding source to doing that. So that's been extremely helpful, because prior to that, it was, do you want an ambulance or do you want a playground? That was never a fun argument for me to have. So this has been very helpful. We're in pretty good shape. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you for explaining that. I'll make a motion to approve the 2023-2027 capital improvements
I
plan.
have a question, sorry. The 2025 Hamlet ball fields, is that when the last two will be done, or is it gonna take that long to finish those last two,
Correct.
before the other two fields are put
That
in?
would be for the final two ball fields, yes. And there's one more parking lot that goes in there as well.
Right, where all the cars have been parking?
No. that's further south,
Okay.
yeah.
That's it. You can motion. Sorry. I just was there all weekend, so I was just curious.
So we do have a motion to approve the capital improvements plan on the floor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we have presentations of information, an update from the Shepard Farm Programming Outreach.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. We had, in June, I attended I'm sure I should start. Shepard's Farm is located on 70th, northwest corner of 70th Street and Jamaica Avenue. It's a historical farm owned by the Shepard and Otis family. Hopefully I got that second name right, but the Dodge Nature Center purchased. They're restoring the historic property, restoring the homes and the farms and the barns and the farm and the barns and things like that. You've seen some animals there. There's a community garden there. They actually have a beekeeper area where you can lease out you can lease out a spot for bee boxes. I don't know if that's what they're called or not, but beehives. And so they're slowly starting to evolve and doing trail walks and things and getting people on the property. The trails are open to the public now. If you haven't had a chance to walk through there, they're pretty neat trails through their old oak forest there. But now they're really trying to tap into the community and figure out what does the programming and events need to look like at Shepard's Farm. And they don't want it to be the exact same as Dodge Nature Center. So we did some brainstorming in June, and then there was supposed to be another event in August that got rained out, unfortunately. Chair Brown and I were going to attend that, but that one got rained out. But just preliminary information, like I said, they don't want to do the exact same thing as the exact same thing they do as Dodge Nature Center. So like their farm will be different than Dodge Nature Center. It might be different animals, might be different crops. They're doing a molasses crop. I can't remember what the product is they use for molasses, but that they're going to harvest that and make molasses, do molasses events and things like that. So trying to be different, trying to be unique, and trying to find out what they can do in Cottage Grove that's going to be special to Cottage Grove. And what's really neat is they spent a lot of time talking about the history of the site and what, some of the historical facts of Cottage Grove, whether it's the dairy farms that were in Cottage Grove. I guess Cottage Grove was huge into wheat back in the late 1800s. So they've talked about that, and that's where they got the molasses idea as well. So they're doing a good job. I don't have a ton of information because we did a lot of surface level brainstorming in terms of what does a natural, like a nature center like this, what kind of looks like, what it might look like, what draws people in and things like that. So the second meeting was more to dig into the brass tacks of what they want to do there. So as we continue to get more information, I'll share it with you, but I just want to make sure you guys understood that the process is moving on. We have representation, and they have representation from all sorts of different organizations across the metro that are involved in nature centers and historical farms like this. So it's been a neat process, and we'll learn more, and then they'll be slowly open up to the public more and more with different events and programs. Any questions you might have from me for that site?
I think this is a fantastic development for Cottage Grove, sandwiched in between Dodd Nature Center and Carpenter. So if you need anyone from the commission to come and help or just be a part of the development, I would be more than happy to be involved.
Excellent. And I should also mention too that even though I said they wanted to be different than Dodge, they were very clear that there's some things they're just good at, like preschool farm programming. Like, we're doing that. So don't even worry about it. We're doing some of that stuff they're really good at. So I don't want you to think that they're not doing anything they're doing at Dodge, but they're trying to look for those things where they can think outside the box a little bit.
Okay, on to Reimagining Recreation Community Engagement Review.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. So we've been working through some community engagement process to understand what people want for their future of the Parks and Recreation Department. I've got a whole bunch of data in here that I thought I would share, the results of, countless, I shouldn't say countless surveys. There was 1,500 survey cards distributed in April through July at different events. We did a Facebook post. We did, I think they did Instagram and all sorts of things where you could do the online versions. We went to things like Schoolie and Discover Cottage Grove Strawberry Fest booth and all sorts of events that we were at trying to get people's information. So gathered a lot of good feedback. I attended several of those, and people love talking about Parks and Recreation. They love the system. They want more. So we're trying to figure out what that more looks like, especially as we develop future parks and trying to figure out what those look like. And then also what are the things that maybe aren't working that we need to improve on. So just thought I would share with you some of the information that we are gathering. And then as we work through that, we're going to start to develop, especially that East Ravine Parks and Trails plan of, okay, what are the missing pieces and what do we need to add into the system? So this is just the first step in that, understanding what the community wants, and then we try to figure out how to input that into the system.
Just a quick comment. Quite some time ago, we put together almost like an inventory of recreational activities and things like that that exist in Cottage Grove, because even though we don't have a community center, which brings a lot of stuff together, we've got a lot of things that happen in general around the city. And just as kind of going through this and looking at some of these requests, I think there's some times where people don't realize that we've got certain things actually, and sometimes you just gotta know where to find it and things like that. So I would suggest that as kind of go through some of this more, and these guys probably haven't seen some of that, and I don't know if we've necessarily kept it up to date too much, but maybe you bring that to this commission, and as you have more discussion on that.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
I have a quick comment on some of the things listed on here. Glacial Valley is a area of high development. We just did our walkthrough with the Watershed District, and they're planning a sensory feature that's an outdoor park, and they're going to be installing bathrooms. Woodbury's going to be installing bathrooms, so it might warrant a meeting or having the Watershed stop by, because like you said, we already have a lot of these features. Some of these features are pending, and then with Glacial Valley, there's going to be a lot of crosstalk and crossover features. So maybe we could get the list really small.
Yeah, right. And I should probably mention too, I'm sorry, Chair. The only reason I put by request if desired is because that spreadsheet was a lot of data. So I didn't want to throw it all in the packet and just confuse you. So if you want that information, I can provide it, but there's just a lot of data to sort through on that spreadsheet. But if you want it, I can get it to you.
The middle school class feedback was particularly interesting and fun to read.
That was pretty, yeah, that was an awesome experience. I went through and I can't remember how many different, but every sixth grader had to develop a park master plan. Yeah. Apparently you should see some of the budgets. We can get a lot done for a small allowance. That was the interesting part is, yeah, budgets weren't their strong suit, but their ideas were awesome. And yeah, I took many ideas away from that and it was amazing some of the parks they chose, the parks that you don't think get used as much by kids. And if it was in their neighborhood, they use it and they want it to be improved. So it was neat.
If they do that again next year, a similar project, would you let us know so we can apply to see if we could come and check some of the stuff out too?
For sure. I think you guys will all be impressed. Some dynamic groups of sixth graders in Cottage Grove. And they had to speak to it every time. So every time you walked up, they had to go through their speech and they had to do it as a team. And yeah, so it was very fun.
Next up, we have the Conservation Minnesota Commissioner Conference opportunity.
Just sharing this information, I thought this was really neat. It's free, so I can certainly sign up any commissioners that are interested. A light lunch is provided, and just a Parks and Recreation Commissioners Conference, which I've never seen this before through. It's through Conservation Minnesota. I thought it was very neat. So don't need any response tonight. Read it. If you can go on the website too and look for more. But if you're interested, just send me an email. I can sign you up.
Do you have any idea of their goals for this conference?
That I do not know.
Okay. All right, on to action updates on grant applications.
I think Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. We have been successful in some grants. We're closing in on the Hamlet Park grant, which was, that was $211,000. The Oakwood Park, we're closing that one out. That was $250,000. We did get the $500,000 grant from the Minnesota DNR Scenic and Natural Ways for the Mississippi Dunes property, so that's a huge accomplishment. We're very happy with that one. Washington County approved their conservation funds for $500,000 for Mississippi Dunes. So we have $1 million applied there. We have about $1 million more. It's about a $2 million acquisition price, give or take. But we're well on our way, so that's great news. We did also receive the Minnesota DNR Outdoor Recreation Grant for $300,000 for Glacial Valley Park, but unfortunately, they changed some of their requirements on that grant, so we won't be able to administer that one. One was it had to be all American-made products, which we were already so far down the line with our bidding that it just wasn't going to work out with steel and other things that weren't American-made. So there was that, and then there were some timing issues too, because we actually escalated the project. Instead of making it a 2 or 3 year project, we escalated into 1 year. So we had some challenges with that as well. But when it's all said and done, if we would have delayed that project, maybe those costs washed out anyways. And same thing, if we had to buy our materials all American, that might have been a challenge as well. So I don't know that that grant would have saved us much money in the long run. But we did get it, so that was cool, because it takes a lot of time to apply for those. So yeah, so we've had a lot of good activity on the grant cycle, and we did have an archery grant. Our recreation supervisor, Brad Muckner, got an archery grant to buy all new archery supplies, so that was very neat. That program's taken off like crazy. The youth in Cottage Grove are eating up archery right now, so that's a good program. So lots of good funding sources coming from outside of Cottage Grove.
Next up, we have community gardens. Do we want them?
You don't have to answer that tonight. The only reason it's on there is to make sure that I tell you guys that we didn't forget about it. We just have not had the time. Summer was crazy. We haven't had the time to dig into it. So it's going to keep it on the agenda. We'll get back to it. I just want to make sure you know we didn't forget about it.
Okay, park project review.
Just wanted to briefly review the park improvement projects. In case you're out and you're wondering where things are at, or your neighbors are asking. Habitat restoration projects, we're pretty much done at Hidden Valley Park. Camel's Hump kind of continues to move to the north along the west side of Hardwood Avenue. Kingston Park is in its second year of growth. That looks pretty good. There's patches of weeds, but for the most part, it looks pretty good, and we're managing that regularly. Settlers Island continues to be used, and that growth is looking pretty good on the island there as well after removing all the invasive tree species. Hamlet Park, the building at the new ball field is done. The field number 2 is open, and football is starting to use that, so that's neat to see. It's got the scoreboard up and the bleacher pad and all that. So the new ball fields on the south end for baseball were used this summer. Harside Park is complete, the new tennis and basketball court. The Oakwood Pavilion, basically Oakwood Park is essentially done, other than we need to finish the ball field at the bottom. We're moving the location of that. We put a new backstop up. The backstop's up. We just need to finish the infield. The building should be done. We're down to some pretty minor contractor work. We got to get the siding contractor to finish the underside of the building, and then after that, the electrical and goes in, and we're kind of done with that project. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, that project is buttoned up. And playgrounds, we already did Hidden Valley. Meadowgrass Park should be going in. That's one, Meadowgrass up by the water tower. That should be going in the next 2 weeks. And then Highlands Park, unfortunately, due to some steel delivery issues, they're backed up. We aren't getting that playground equipment until January, which is not a great construction time for Minnesota. So we will see that playground be replaced in 2023, spring of 23. And if you haven't driven by Glacial Valley Park, that park changes every day. They're moving really quick out there, and they're doing a good job. So by end of October, I would think that park would be substantially complete.
I feel like my nagging worked. Just kidding.
Now, I will say the playground.
Just kidding, Jim. Just kidding.
The playground that we approved, we're waiting to see how the park development finishes. We don't want to build the playground if the park is not safe for people to be walking through. So we're just waiting to see how the park development, and then we'll figure out if the playground goes in this fall or next spring. But anytime you have questions, concerns, thoughts, drive by, see something that doesn't look right, or you want to know anything about, give me a shout. It's an open book.
The Hidden Valley Park playground equipment is quite fun. Got top reviews from my young users. The horseshoe pits, though, there are quite sad. We either need to take those out or spruce them up, because like the metal stakes are gone, one of the backstops is not, it's just sad.
That was actually an Eagle Scout project from one of the boys in the neighborhood. And unfortunately, got damaged and things like that, so.
I biked through there last weekend, and it's on my list. 2 weekends ago.
And if you haven't seen the new awesome outdoor fitness equipment for adults
so
at
awesome.
Kingston Park, it has been installed. So I'd encourage you to check that out. Go get your free workout in the fresh air.
It looks good.
Is there signage coming for that, for different exercises, or?
I just got emailed by the company, but I wasn't overly impressed with the signage they gave me. It was pretty weak, so.
I thought it was supposed to show like different things you could do.
Yeah, so that's what I was hoping for, that it would say, here's some different routines you could do. So we'll probably have to come up with something on our own, so we'll look into that.
You have your personal training certification, right?
Yeah. You're a jack of all trades.
I do.
Just food for thought there.
I was over there dropping Maddie off for soccer, and there was a coach with his team over there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something new. It's new and exciting, that's good.
Do we have time for questions on different things? With the new steps that they redid off of 80th going down into that area, are there plans to, I don't know, clear out that trail and make it less like someone's backyard to follow that down? Or, because I walked down them and then I felt weird, like I was in someone's yard after a while. Because I thought you could get all the way back through to the,
Yeah. You can get back up to, I can't remember the name of the road, but you can get back up to another street there. I don't know, do we have that on our list to go through there at all?
You
the
do
stairs
now.
look fantastic. I mean, they're
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
My
They were
family
in
cleaned
bad
that up
shape.
for a couple of years, and it just, yeah, it could use some definition.
So in terms of the walkway that's back there, depending on how you go, when you come down the steps initially, that area that opens up that you feel like you're in somebody's backyard, their yards are way up on the hill. So that area is all open space. It's actually the water area for the drainage coming from across the street. So that area there, then once you get past that, it goes up on top, and there is a trail system up there. Eventually, we'll have to clear it out to get back down into, over towards Woodridge Park, because that trail will tie in over that way, but we haven't been through there in years on that trail there because it's very narrow. We can't get equipment in there. It's all handwork and dragging it out. So somewhere down the road, I'm sure we'll get back to tying that all together, but I don't see it in the very near future.
Well, the stairs are really nice.
Tree Trust did a great job in
Yeah.
there, and they did some clearing of some underbrush and that, and they have some piles back there for us to pick up and chip up and all out of there.
But if you have a specific area where, a tree falls over, or a tree's hanging, you think, if you have specific areas where we can clean it up and make it better, let us know.
On to donation acknowledgements.
Yeah, we have quite a few. We have the Rodenberg Family Memorial Bench. We have the Warrensholtz Memory Memorial Bench, which actually just went up yesterday. That one is in the Cottage Grove Trailway Corridor along this little three-legged pond just east of Hinton Avenue. I'm sorry, the Rodenberg family, that's going to go up at the new Meadowgrass Park Playground. So he had played with his family there, so that one will go there. CGAA football contributed almost all the costs of the Hamlet football soccer field number 2. CGAA hockey has contributed over $100,000 for a training center at the ice arena. And CGAA hockey also has committed to improvements to Glacial Valley Park for enhanced ice rink boards and also a scoreboard. And then baseball has purchased for scoreboards for Hamlet Park fields number 6 and number 9. So lots of donations.
Thank you for that update. Next, we have staff reports and educational material.
Just submitted from all the different divisions, Recreation, Parks, Ice Arena, and River Oaks. If you have any questions on that information, let me know. Otherwise, I also included a couple articles, one on the reduce of stress related to Parks and Recreation, and then an interesting article about a youth soccer coach case study, legal case study I thought was quite interesting that maybe you guys would find interesting as well. So all just for your information, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Regarding the Recreation Division update, supervised playgrounds this summer were awesome. On a personal note, this was my first summer as a working mom, so to have such an awesome program to send my kids to so that I could get work done was wonderful. They talked about being able to make new friends and learn new games, and I knew that they were safe and having fun, and I was just wanting to say thank you to Molly for putting together such a great program for our community. Did any of you all get out to the Movies in the Park events this summer?
We did.
I think that was a good success. There were vendors in the parking lot, and Schoolie was there, and I got to see a lot of community members out just enjoying the parks in a new way. Is it possible that that's a program that we could support for additional years, or was this just a one-time opportunity?
It's your turn.
Good evening, everyone. Molly with the Recreation Department. So the Movies in the Park was a complete grassroots effort from a lady who lives in our community, has a business in our community, and wanted movies in the park. And she called, and I didn't say no. I gave her my spiel. I gave her where I've come from doing movies at River Oaks, at the Ice Arena, at Highlands. I gave her all the bad things, and she was like, I'm still going to try it. And I think I warned people, I'm like, just so you know, I think this is coming back. But so we supported her, sponsored the event by providing the park for free. So where other vendors in the past have kind of wanted it to be more, the promotion of them, then they would have to rent the park. So the plan is, yes, going forward, I believe she has quite a bit of still financial resources left from this year to continue to have a startup fund for next year. And I do plan on, as a city, plan on continuing to support her efforts, her movies in the park by providing, Jim and I work together to make sure the trash is covered, the irrigation is off, the park building's open, we clean bathrooms halfway through the evening. So I know Brad was out there every night working in the 3 movies in the park nights. We provided tables for the vendors at some points, checking power for everything that they kind of needed for their stuff. So that will be the plan going forward, is to start earlier in the process, get those dates set. I know we had to work with baseball once or twice to kind of move games that they had already set there. She kind of came in late. So, but that is our plan, to add that, to continue to support that. Yeah, it was good. I think she was more than surprised, more than amazed by how much support she had from businesses in Cottage Grove once she got the swing of it, kind of trying to figure out how to do it. So she did really good. Yeah, it's Monique Garza is the one who kind of did it. Total grassroots effort, bottoms up. So it was great.
Thank you.
Since you're up there, Molly?
Yeah.
How
love to.
did Strawberry Fest stuff go? Like the softball tournament and the mile and stuff like that?
Yep. So Brad runs with the softball tournament out at Lamar. That was great. I think we were filled 2 weeks in advance with probably up to 6 teams on the waiting list. Everything was flawless out there as far as I know, as far as fields and, kind of staying on time, and with the Lions doing concessions and beer sales. He was more than happy with everything that went. I know, it's a fine line when something is very good. Do you try to improve upon it, or do you, just leave well enough alone? So I know Brad always likes to go bigger and better. So we're kind of discussing next year what we could do. As far as the 5K, I would say was down a little bit in attendance, but our timer guy who does it for us said 5Ks have kind of been down, you know, across the metro as far as people paying to come out and run 5Ks. We were still happy with it. I cannot even remember at this point how many people we had. The kids 1 mile is still always popular. I planned for 50 and I think we had 49. And then one kid lost her medal in the parking lot, so I had one extra. So we definitely cut it really close on the kids 1 mile. So it was good on our end. It's a busy weekend. It's always the first week of summer, second week of summer, first week of hockey camp. So it's kind of borderline gong show that week. So once we get through that, we kind of regroup. So Brad and I divide and conquer that Saturday and split up. So it was good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anything else? Summer supervised playgrounds was very good too. All of our sites were pretty much full every day, all summer, with extras here and there. So it was a busy, busy summer. It's been very nice the last week and a half.
Glacial Valley will have supervised playground when that opens, or?
It will, yep. So as we were building that park and kind of designing the interior, so you can kind of vision when you come in, one side will be more for like more formal rental space, and then to the left will be more of a park and rec space. So as we designing that, we're keeping a lot of things in mind that work well at our current sites and that don't work well. So kind of based on where we're looking at that would be another site then for 2024, and that would probably house about 50 kids there.
Wow.
So yeah, not to scare people for next year, but we probably turned away about 75 families this year, and I anticipate it will be more next year, but we just don't have the capacity to increase until we get Glacial Valley on board. Fair warning, if you want MEA break, spots are limited. So yeah, everything's filling up really fast for us lately. It's a good problem and a hard problem at the same time, so yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on to commission comments. Commissioner Olson, do you have updates for us from Washington County?
Just, there was no meeting since our last meeting. There is a meeting on Thursday, so I'll get a report to you, Zach, for our next agenda. The Washington County Fair did take place, and we had a booth there that some of us on the commission manned that booth, and it was real fun. But that's it. I would add another comment, which is I've had a chance since our last meeting to do some bike riding around and stuff, and I've seen some of these programs where the kids are being entertained, if you will, and learning new things, and it's really fun to see. The other thing that is I did go up to the Strawberry Fields again. This particular time when I was there, that tomato/strawberry was full of kids on both levels. So it was just amazing. It was really a cool thing to see.
That tomato was supposed to be a secret, just so you know.
Oh, sorry.
It's not anymore.
Okay, if there aren't any further commissioner comments, we can move on to council comments.
Just a couple things. You were talking about Glacial Valley, and so we've, in council, have been we approved the master plan for that. And we've also been talking about some sustainability and looking at possibly with the solar and the geothermal, and looking at costs and paybacks. And while we all kind of agreed that we like the idea of the sustainability, and we're probably going to go ahead and keep looking at the planning for it, we'll have to make another decision on whether we want to invest. Everybody was kind of leaning with the solar. The geothermal's a little bit higher, longer payback and so forth. But and looking at different materials for the outside of the building and things like that. Had some discussion and workshop and so forth. Also, you guys, another thing that we discussed, and actually, the River Oaks Golf Course, as you know, has some major activity in terms of plans on the irrigation system and everything else. We put out for a bid, we only got one back. And it was close to $1 million over what the engineer's estimate was. So we approved the denial of that bid, is basically what we did. And so we're gonna go back to the drawing board on that one. I think that was kind of about it. You guys have any other questions for me? Okay.
Right, and with our agenda completed, could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.